Okay, I guess we can get started. So thank you everyone for joining us in this new session of Ask ProtoPie. Today's focus will be components, and I'm happy to introduce our expert, Jeffrey Clark, who will be guiding you through this core feature in ProtoPie with some real examples he prepared. Honestly, Jeffrey masters components like no one else, so I'm sure the session will be super useful if you're still learning. Oh, sorry,
Jumping ahead.
I jumped ahead. So as always, there will be a Q&A session after Jeffrey's presentation. So we'll be answering your questions live later during Q&A. Okay, yeah, now I'll give the floor to Jeffrey. Yeah, you can share your screen.
All right, thank you very much. Happy to be back here again. I hope many of you tuned in for the webinar I ran 2 weeks ago, all about on conditions. Today, we're going to talk about components and how to communicate them within your scene. We're going to start right from the basics. What is a component in ProtoPie? And essentially, it's a reusable item you create to save time and effort. And if you've worked with components in Figma or symbols in Sketch, this is a very similar concept. But the big difference is components in ProtoPie can have their own set of triggers and responses. You can think of them as a prototype within a prototype. We communicate with our components using a very simple messaging system. And we have a trigger named send, a response named send, and a trigger named receive. You send messages from one place, they're received on the other. And the message you send is just text, and you can pick whatever you want that message to be. It can be a word, it can be a phrase, it can even be an emoji. I've tested this, so I know it works. We send messages through specific channels, and it's very important. So the message and the channel you send the message through must match on the send side and the receive side. So here is a list of channels right here. So on the send side, if I send to the current scene is the channel. I need to receive on the current scene. Makes sense, they're both named the same thing. I can send to component, and the counterpart to that is receive from parent. And then similarly, I can send to parent, and that's from the component back to the scene, and I can receive from component. And within my component, I can send to current component and receive from current component. But I can hear you asking, what are these? And why should I use one channel instead of another? So I'm going to show you, and that's what today's demo is going to be all about. But before I jump in, I just want to remind you that you can put all of your questions into the Q&A. Just put them in there whenever you have them, and we'll answer them when I'm done my demo, which will be in about 15 minutes. So having said that, let's jump in. We have the starting pie over here, which I will copy and put into the chat. If you want to follow along, download it, go to share, download, and fire it up in ProtoPie to get started. I'll give everybody just a second to get started. We're going to be working with this smart home app, and it's going to be a panel where you control your smart lights in here. And we're going to start by turning this light bulb here into a component. There's 3 items that will make up this control. We have this light bulb icon, then I have this outline that's giving us the white outline, and then I have this glow around there as well. I'm going to take these 3 and holding down Shift, select all 3, right click, create component. Now this creates a reusable item that I can use, but you're going to see it's named kind of weird. It's called component 1.1. And this means that is the first copy of a component called component 1. ProtoPie gives you the name component 1. It's not very smart about how it names it. So let's give it some smarter names here. This is my master, by the way, and I got to that in my components drawer, which is this icon that looks like 2 books and a lightning bolt beside it. And if you open up there, you can see your master, or as we call it in ProtoPie, your main component. And if I double click it, I can rename it. I'm going to call this light control. And the name I have over here, this is my copy. I can name this anything that I want. And I'm going to name this bedroom 2 because it's the light control for bedroom 2. Okay, now I mentioned when I was doing my slides at the beginning that components can have their own sets of triggers and responses, and we're going to add those now. So to do that, we are going to, let me fix this typo, sorry about that. To do that, we're going to go into our component and we can edit it by double clicking it right here. And that'll now bring us into our edit. You can see I am isolated now from the scene, and all I have are the 3 items that I turned into the component. I'm going to set this up such that when I tap it, if it's currently lit up, so the light bulb is yellow and I got this glow, I'm going to turn the light off, so it's going to go dark and the glow is going to go away. And if I tap it again, it's going to light back up again. So let's add a tap trigger. I'm going to add it to the top level group right here. Add trigger, tap. And I need to make a decision. And if you were with me 2 weeks ago, you know that anytime you want to make a decision, you need to use a condition. And in my first condition, I'm going to use the opacity of the glow because I'm going to turn the opacity to 0 when I turn the light off. So if the glow is at 100% opacity, that means the light is on. Therefore, I want to turn it off. And if the opacity is at 0, that means the light is off and I want to turn it on. So in my condition, I'm going to choose the glow layer and I'm going to choose its opacity right here. And the value I'm going to look for is if it's 100, if the light is on, condition on, turn off. And let's add in some responses here. So let's change the color of our light bulb. I'm going to change it to a blue color, and I'm going to use it the same blue that I have in the scene over here. To go back to the scene, we can just double click the scene. And I'm going to use this blue that's in this icon right here. And I'll go back into my component here. And the color I'm going to give it is this blue color. And I'm going to change the opacity of the glow layer to 0. And I'm going to rename these so I can see them at a glance what's going on. Color blue, opacity, glow to 0. And now I need the other condition. So if it's off, I want to turn it on. And I'm just going to duplicate this condition and modify. So Command D or Control D on Windows will duplicate the condition and all of the responses underneath. And let's rename this. If it's off, turn on. And my condition now is if the opacity of the glow layer is 0, not 100, I'm going to color it yellow. And let's just pick the yellow right off the stage right here. And I want to turn the glow back up to 100. And there we go. I should now have a working component. And I can preview this. I can preview this in isolation of my scene just by hitting the preview button, the same way I would preview the scene. And I should be able to turn it off. Okay, well, I don't have that working. It's the glow is going off, but my color is not. So what do I have? What's going on? Color blue here. Color, I have the wrong layer selected here. Color of the light bulb. And let's just make sure this is color light bulb. And I gotta pick that color again. That's better. Always important to make sure you pick the right layers. So I want to color the light bulb blue and color the light bulb yellow here. There we go. Okay, off and on. Let's go back to our scene. So you can get back to the scene, like I said before, by double-clicking scene, or I can use this navigator at the top. So I can hit this left button, which will take me back to the previous item I was working on. And I want to make copies of this. Now I've got one. I want to make another bunch for all of the other rooms in here. I can do that by dragging a new component, just like that. And let's name these. This one will be for the bathroom. And this one will be for master bedroom. Or I can hold down the Alt button and just drag. And that'll make a copy as well. This one will be for the terrace. This one for the dining room. Oops, I think I made another one there. I did too. Okay. This one will be for dining room. And then this one will be for living room. One more for the kitchen. Oops, that's weird. There we go. One more for the kitchen. And one last one for my entry right here. We'll call that entry. And very quickly, if I preview this, I now have light control for all of my individual rooms. And if this were a real smart home, this would supposedly be turning the lights on and off in my home. Okay, so that's how you make a component and make copies of them. I want to make this a bit smarter. And you can see I have these 3 scene buttons over here. I've got this good morning button, which will turn on all of my lights. I've got this good night one, which will turn off all of my lights. And I have this movie time one. And I'm going to come back to that one a little bit later because that's going to be a bit more special. But let's start with our good night button. I'm going to start the way I want this to work by when I tap the good night button. I want this to turn off all my lights, regardless if they're on or off. I want them just to all go off. So let's add a tap trigger. And I'm going to send a message. This is now how we're going to communicate with our components. I'm going to send a message that my components can receive that will give them an instruction to turn off. So I'm going to send a message. And I'm going to use the current scene channel. And I'm not going to spend time explaining the channel just yet. We're going to get into the differences in a moment. But for now, use the send to current scene channel. And the message I'm going to use is turn off. Like I said before, you can use any message you like, you make it up. Okay, if I preview this right now and I tap good night and nothing happens, and that's because I haven't set up the receive for this yet. So I'm going to go back into my component and I'm going to set up the receive. So add trigger, receive, and remember the channel has to match. So I want to receive from current scene. If you recall, if I go back to this slide right here, recall that if I send a current scene, I need to receive from current scene. So let's receive from current scene and the message, and you're going to see ProtoPie shortlists already. It knows that I've set up a send on the current scene for turn off, so I can just pick it. Send, I'm going to receive the message turn off. And in response to turn off, I am going to copy these responses right here and paste it right here. Now, if I go back to my scene, hopefully my good night scene will work. Boom, they all went off. And all these lights still operate independently. So if I turn on a few of them and I hit good night again, those turn off. Let's do the same thing for good morning. This will be the opposite. When I tap that one, it's going to turn on all my lights. So let's copy this. Actually, I'm going to rename this first. So tap good night, and then we're going to send turn off. Great habit to get into, renaming your triggers and responses so you know at a glance what you're doing. And I'm going to just duplicate this and we'll modify. So instead of good night, I want the good morning button. And instead of turn off, I want turn on. Or I could have called it good morning, or I could have called it get up. I could have called it anything that I like. Go back to light control, and I'm going to add the receive trigger for turn on. Again, from the current scene, turn on. Receive, turn on, and we'll copy these two because this is my turn on routine. And now if I go back to my scene and I preview this, I should now be able to click good night to turn all my lights off. And I should be able to click good morning and all my lights come on. So there we go. Now I have 2 of my 3 scenes set up. My third scene, movie time, is special because I want only to affect the entry light, the dining room light, and the living room light. And I only want those 3 lights to turn off when I tap on this. And whatever the other 3 lights happen to be, I just want to leave them as they are. Now, if I were to set this up in the same way that I did before, and here, let's add a tap trigger to movie time, tap, movie time. And if I were to just send a message to the current scene, and we'll just call this, I'll call this one turn off. Oh, sorry. I have this one is turn off and this one's turn on. But if I were to use the message turn off like this, and I preview this, you're going to guess what's going to happen is if I click this, it's going to do exactly what my goodnight one does because they're doing the same thing. I'm sending the message turn off on the send to current scene channel. So now here's where we can use a different channel. So we've used send to current scene, and you can envision current scene. Picture a room with 100 people in it, and you get up on top of a soapbox with a megaphone and you yell to everybody, turn off. Everybody hears you and everybody obeys you. Instead of screaming to the whole room, I just want to lean to the person next to me and whisper in their ear, turn off. And that's what we're going to do. By changing the channel here to send to component instead of current scene, I can now pick which component I want to send this message to. So here, I'm going to send this to living room. And now what happens when I preview this? Nothing. Nothing happened because I haven't set up the receive for this. If we go back into our component, you're going to see we have a receive for turn off, but that's on the receive from current scene channel. So I can make another one, add trigger, receive, and we'll call this turn off. But instead of it being on the current scene, I'm going to do receive from parent. Recall, if I send a component, I need to receive from parent. And even though this is the same message that I've used over here, because it's on a different channel, it behaves differently. And I don't even have to have the same set of responses under here. I could have a different set altogether if I wanted to. But in this case, I want it to do the same thing. So we're going to do turn off here. Now, these two things look like they're the same thing. So I'm going to rename this so that way we can say turn off from scene. And this is turn off from parent. That's so we know the difference between these two, right? And they didn't even have to be named the same, but I did name them the same to illustrate that even though you're using the same message name, if you're using a different channel, it is a different send and receive altogether. So let's go back to our scene. This should now work for our living room. If I tap movie time, there we go. Living room went out, and all of these other lights, let me turn this back on. All of these other lights, whatever they happen to be at, should stay at what they are. And there we go. Living room just went out. Now let's duplicate this. So I'm going to say send turn off to living room. And I'm going to duplicate this 2 more times. 2, 3. This one will be for, not the kitchen, sorry. This one will be for dining room. Wrong one. And this one will be for the entry. So there we go. Now I have 3 scenes. This one turns off all my lights. This one turns on all my lights. And this one just turns off those 3. And now this is my movie time scene. So that's the difference. That's the difference between send to scene and send to component. Now, send to component and receive from parent works the other way around as well. So my component can send to parent, and then my scene can listen to a particular component to get a message just from that one component in particular. So let's go in here. What I'd like to do is whenever I turn the light on and off, I want to send a message back to the scene to say, hey, I'm the bedroom 2 light and I just turned on. And then in the scene, I want to use that. Now, if we go into our floor plan group right here, you're going to see I have another group called rooms. And all of these rooms here are actually separate images. And I'm going to adjust the opacity of the room to put it into a dimmed state. So if the bedroom 2 light turns off, then I'm going to adjust the opacity of this room bed 2 layer. And if that light turns on, I'm going to adjust it back up to 100. So let's go back into our component and set that up. Whenever my light turns on, I'm going to send a message to parent because I want the parent to be able to listen to this particular copy, and the message will be on. And I'll do send on to parent. And same thing when, sorry, that's in the wrong place. That needs to be down here. When it turns off, I want to send the off message. Send to parent, message off. And anytime I'm turning off or on, I want to copy this. So I'm going to copy this here because I have this turn on routine here. And I'm going to copy the turn off. I'm going to paste one here and paste one here. Now I can listen to each of these independently and take a different action depending on which one says it's on or off. So let's start with this guy. This is my bedroom 2 light. I'm going to add a trigger, receive from component because I want to pick which one I want to listen to. And this one will be bedroom 2. And when the message is off, so I'm going to say receive off. Then we're going to adjust the opacity of the room bed 2 layer. And I'm not going to put it all the way to 0. I'm going to put it to 30%. So you can see it a little bit, but it'll be darker. And I'm going to add another receive. again, from component. And this one, again, would be bedroom 2. And when it's on, then here, I'm going to copy this, and this will be all the way back to 100. So now when I preview this, if I turn my bedroom 2 light on, you're going to see that room goes dark. And when I turn it back on, it goes bright again. But none of these other ones will affect that room because I've listened to this one in particular. And when I got the message from that one in particular, I'm just adjusting this room in particular. And because I added those copies of all of these sends into all of the different places that I'm turning the light on and off, it will work too with my scene. So when I do good night, or when I do good morning, you're going to see it goes dim there as well. So let's set this up for the rest of the rooms. I'm going to group these two. Command G to group them, and I'll call this one bedroom 2. And let's duplicate this. And this one will be for the bathroom. And I can just modify, like we've always done, copy and modify. It's a fast way to work. So I'm going to click this one, hold down Command, click this one, and I'm going to change the target here to bathroom. And these two opacities, hold down Command, and change the room to room bathroom. All right, duplicate this again. This will be for master bed. Let's call master, good enough. Change this to master bedroom. These two opacities to master bed. This one will be for the terrace. See if you can go faster than me. Dining room. This will be for room dining. A couple more. Living room. This one will be for living room. These two will be for room living. There we go. This is kitchen. Kitchen, and this will be for room kitchen. And one more. This will be for our entryway. Room entry. Okay, now we should have a really cool effect here. If I turn any of these lights on and off, and let's make sure I didn't mess anything up. Let's test them all. All right, they're all working nicely. So now I get the actual rooms dimmed as I turn lights on and off. Cool little effect. One more thing I want to show you. Let's go back into our component. You'll notice here we've duplicated our work. We have our routine to turn off our light here, here, and here. So we have it duplicated 3 times. And then we have our routine here to turn on our light here and here. And if I were to add another one like this one, the turn off from parent, would make it turn on from parent. My turn on would be duplicated again. And let's say I want to make this even more capable, and I want this to do this where I could set the actual dimming level. I would be duplicating my work another couple of times in here. This is a bad way to work. You don't want to get into a position where if you need to make changes to your prototype, you need to change it in 5 places. I want to change it in 1 place. Think about if you're in like a testing session, day 1, you make some testing and you come off some insights and you want to make some changes. You want to spend 5 minutes making your changes, not 2 hours and scrambling. So we're going to set ourselves up for success here. In the same way that we've used send and receive to send messages back and forth between our scene and our component, we can send messages within our component. And this was the 4th one that I showed you. So if we go back, send to current component, receive from current component, let's set up a receive here. Receive from current component. And the message will be turn on. Now, I've used a lowercase message here, and all of my other messages have been uppercase. This is just something that I do. It will work fine if you use uppercase for everything or lowercase for everything, but I use this as a naming convention to let me know that uppercase ones are messages that are coming in from an external source or going out to an external source. Lowercase messages to me mean messages sent within my component. So for my turn on, I'm going to copy my turn on routine, copy these. Paste it in here, and I'm going to set up another receive for turn off. So from current component, turn off. And we'll copy my turn off routine here, paste it here. And now I can replace all these. I don't need these three here anymore. I can replace this with a single send to current component. This is turn off. And this one I can replace, this will be turn on. So send to current component, turn on. Let's just make sure I didn't mess that up. This should still work if I click it. Okay, very good. Let's replace the other ones now. So let's copy turn off, replace these three, paste it here. Replace these three, paste it here, and we'll take our turn on. We're going to replace these three, and we'll paste it here. So now my logic for turning on the component is in one place. That's this one right here. And my logic for turning off the component is in this place. And all of these other ways that I can turn it on and off are just referencing these ones. This is a really good way to organize your code. So if we go back into the scene, everything should still work. As far as the scene is concerned, nothing has changed. I can turn my lights on. I can turn them all off. I can set my movie time, and I can operate all of these lights independently. But what makes this really beneficial? So let's say I've done some testing right now, and in my user testing, the feedback has said, you know what, this icon from the lights off, it's not really dark enough. This blue color, it's too bright. It doesn't really indicate an off light to me. I think the light should be darker. Silly situation, I know, but it's for demonstration. Well, we've set ourselves up for success now, where I can just go in here and I can change my color once. And let's say I want to change it to this dark midnight blue. That's it. I'm done. My components now turn dark blue with a single change. And there you go. That is in 15 minutes, thereabouts. This is how you use components and how you can use send and receive to communicate with them in all sorts of different ways. And with that, I'd like to open up the floor for all of your questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeffrey, for this demonstration. Yeah, it's now Q&A time. Please ask your questions using the Q&A tab, which you'll find at the bottom of the window. It looks like we have a few questions already. I'm gonna take the last three ones. Is there a link where I can look at the presentation again, and will this video be available on YouTube? Yes, you will receive an email after this session with the recording link and the prototype Jeffrey made. We'll also upload the recording to our events page this week. And later, yes, we'll probably upload it to YouTube as well. So don't worry, you'll be able to watch it and share it. Rebecca, would you please share the link of our events page? Yeah, thank you. Okay. And okay, we have a question for you, Jeffrey. If I want to select multiple items and show options based on that selection, do we use variables inside each component? And the following one, yeah, the following one I think is linked to the previous one. So to elaborate on my previous question, for example, tapping good night plus movie time together will activate the lights associated to good night and movie time. Can we do that with components?
I'm not sure that I quite understand what the question is asking. You can't really here. Let me share again so I can. Oops, you don't want to open Photoshop. So you can't tap on this one and this one at the same time. They are independent items on here. So I'm not really sure what the question is asking. So tapping good night and movie time together will activate the lights associated to good light and movie time. Can we do that with components? Are you able to give me a bit more details on what you're looking for?
Okay, yeah, we will we will give him some time perhaps to elaborate a little bit more. And
Okay.
in the meantime, you can answer the next question. Can you share components across files, as in having a file just for components and shared across projects?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of ways you can do that. You can use, if you have a pro or an enterprise subscription, you can use a team library. And the way that that works, you'll notice here that all the component that I made is just local to this Pi. Now I can copy this to another Pi. So for example, if I start another Pi here and I go over here, I can take this guy and I can paste it over here, right? That's one way you can do it. And everything is there. It'll still work and everything will work as you would expect, right? And all of my logic is there. So yeah, that is one way you can do it. However, if you have a pro or an enterprise subscription, you can use a team library, and then I can take this and I can upload it. So you're going to see we actually have a bunch that are in here, a whole bunch. And these are similar to like a design system you would have in Figma, for example. And I can upload one or more components into a team library, and that makes it available to anybody on my team. And all they need to do was they would go into here. Well, that's not a great example. Here, I'll take a look at the iOS kit, for example, right? This could be an example of a team library that I've been maintaining, and anybody on my team can literally just drag my component in and use it as is, and it'll work exactly the same way as I designed it. Does that answer the question?
Okay. Okay, amazing. Okay, we don't have the details of the first questions yet. So,
yeah, I don't really understand. So, okay, how complex is it to make something like a decision tree where selecting different buttons reveals an image tied exactly to that path? I would like to use components and variables to realize that, right? It's a bit of a loaded question. So if you were in the session 2 weeks ago where I talked about conditions, you can have many conditions under one trigger. So for example, I showed an example of how you could do a password validator, and that had many conditions in there. And part of it was classifying each character into what type of character it was. Was it an uppercase? Was it a lowercase? Was it a numeric? Was it a special character? Was it amongst the list of forbidden characters, etc.? So you can go through and test for each one of those. And it's not really a decision tree per se, where you kind of have one of two paths over here and it goes into a right branch and a left branch. You're just kind of having one after the other kind of thing. It's kind of more similar to if this then, otherwise if this then, otherwise if this then. It's a bit more similar to that if you've done any programming before. Now, not to say that you can't do a decision tree, but you would be doing it with one trigger with two options, and each of those can send a message off in the same way that I sent a message inside my component here. So if you take a look in here, in the same way that I sent the message to the component into itself, you can send a message into another trigger that could do one of two branches, and then the other one would do one of two branches. You could set up a decision tree that way, but it would be it would be hard to manage that, and it's probably not the best way to work. If I were to show you the password validator, let me see if I have that handy here. Here we go. I can show you how this works. So essentially, this is my decision tree right here, right? I look to see if it's lowercase. If so, increase the count of, I look to see if it's uppercase. And if so, increase the account of uppercase to 1. I look to see if it's lowercase, increase the account of lowercase to 1, etc. And I'm doing that for each type of character that I want. And similar up here, I've got multiple decisions on here. Is it too short? If so, send the message back. Is it too long? Same thing, but I'm sending a different message back. If it's okay, now I'm jumping into my classify. So I've used that send the message to myself technique right here, because I didn't want to have all of these conditions plus all of these conditions. This was a way to help me organize. So I'm checking for length first. If it passes length, then I'm going to go into character classification. And when that is done, Then I go into calculate result. And this is now looking at the number of bad characters, the number of special characters, the number of numerics. And if any of those numbers doesn't meet whatever requirements I've set, it's going to come back with an error. Otherwise, everything's passed, and it's going to send that message back to the scene. So this is a combination. This is a combination of send and receive and lots of conditions. So this is everything I taught you 2 weeks ago, plus everything I taught you today in a very, very powerful end result. Does that answer the question?
Thank you. Great. Oh, maybe this one is making a beauty studio pie and different cards select different set of lights. I wanted to combine multiple light settings.
What do you mean by multiple light settings? I think that's what I'm getting confused by. I don't understand what that means.
Yeah. Please, elaborate a little bit more if you can.
I think the short answer to what you're asking is yes, but I don't know in particular what you're trying to do. But I mean, it is possible to do all sorts of different things. So for example, I could do a tap and hold on movie time, right? And I could have a selection on which lights I want to send to. Is that what you're asking for?
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any more questions today? Oh, yes. A new one came in. Can you recommend some components library that could speed up the overall prototyping process where we can just customize the components quickly and use it in our project?
Okay, so the two component libraries that are included with ProtoPie right out of the gate are this material design one and the iOS UI kit. And also somebody that you might have met before, his name is Darren. He runs a channel called ProtoPilot. He has his own set of UI components that you can use for other things. As it stands right now, you can't detach something from a library here and then customize it. However, that ability is coming in 7.4, which should be the next release of ProtoPie Studio. So you'll be able to pull in a component, detach it from the library, and then you could be able to customize it as you want, and then resave it in your own library as your own component.
Nice.
Did that answer the question?
Cool. Okay, we have a new one. I think these are the details we were waiting for. Maybe it's not really decision tree. What I want to create is a UX prototype for furniture modeling preview. So you have different menus like height, length, and after selecting these different buttons, you get a rendering revealed to these sizes you selected. So I guess every different option needs a different variable to send receive.
Well, this depends on how intricate you want your prototype to be, right? A lot of times when we have a tool like ProtoPie at our disposal, we want to make everything. We want to make the whole experience. We want an entire catalog of furniture and have every single variation and have that all in there. When really the point of the prototype is to get across an idea so that way your engineering team can build it, or you want to use it for user testing, or you want to evangelize the idea. It is seldom a complete rendition of your entire final product. So you can do everything that you're asking. And you're going to need to use variables. You're going to need to use send and receive. But I mean, that's a very short and an incomplete answer. You'd have to think about how you'd want to do it. But I mean, the answer is, yeah, you can do all of that. You could make a component for a piece of furniture. And let's say it has 3 images, 1 is visible, 2 are hidden, and those represent your 3 variations of a piece of furniture. And then you could customize that by dragging in your option 1 as the visible image, dragging in another image for option 2, dragging another image for option 3, and then you can send messages to say, show me variation 1, show me variation 2, show me variation 3. And then you'd only need one component with one set of messages, but you would make many copies of that and customize it for each piece of furniture that you have, right? Maybe that's a way you want to do it. Or, maybe you set up your component that it can have a maximum of 5 variations, for example, or maybe 10 variations, right? So that way you could do a combination of color and height. Maybe that's what it is. And then you would make your component configurable to say there are 3 color variations, 2 height variations, and then you can set up your component to combine those. And then again, you're receiving only show me variation 1, color option B. And your component takes care of mixing and matching and showing whatever it needs to be. So yeah, it can be done. Might be a good thing to do a tutorial on in the future, actually. I think that would be an interesting one. But yes, can be done.
Thank you.
Okay. Tap blue lights card, blue lights turn on. Tap red lights card, red lights turn on. Tap blue and tap red card together, lights will turn purple. So you would want to detect when, so let's say you're using 2 fingers. This is what you mean. So I tap them both at the same time and you want something different to happen. If that's the case, what you want to do, yeah, you can do that. I would use a touchdown on that. So on touchdown of 1, I would keep a variable that says blue card is down. And for touchdown of the red card, I would have a variable that says red card is down. And then on each of those touchdowns, I would check, okay, well, you touch down on the blue one, is red one also down? If so, do whatever set of responses you want. If not, then just do the blue action. And then similar for the red card, touch down on the red card and it checks, is blue also down? If so, turn the lights purple. Otherwise, just turn the lights red. So yeah, you can absolutely do that. And that's, again, a combination of everything that I showed you in the 2 weeks ago one where we talked about conditions, right? You're just going to have one of 2 actions when you have the touchdown on the card.
Perfect. That's the answer I was looking for.
Excellent. I'm glad we finally got there.
Perfect. Okay. Does anyone has a question?
I see a note in the chat here. Somebody said, Jeffrey, I love the Pearl Jam cover behind you. Believe it or not, that is a vinyl album cover. That's an original pressing of the Vitalogy album. I found that at a music store completely by accident, and I bought it because I thought it was cool. I don't even own a record player, but I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. And I didn't discover until years later that the one that I have is an original pressing. So pretty awesome.
Lucky day. Cool. If there are no more questions, I guess we can end our Q&A session. Of course, if you have more questions about what Jeffrey demonstrated, feel free to send us your questions through our website contact us form, or join the community and ask there. Okay, I will go back sharing my screen.
Am I still sharing? One second, I'll stop. There you go.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay. Sorry. Okay, let me just go back to me. Okay. Yes. Before wrapping up this session, I would like to share this discount code we created for you. So you can use this code to at checkout to get a free month on the monthly pro plan. Please, Rebecca, share the code in the chat as well. We'll be hosting a few more live events before the end of this year. We have the last ProtoPie webinar of 2022 planned for November 17th, featuring the design team at Punchcut. And we'll also go live with one more Ask ProtoPie session on November 15th, which will be dedicated to variables. And one last thing before saying goodbye, ProtoPie has been included in this year's Design Tools survey. So yeah, if you love us and want to see us grow and thrive next year, please vote for us as best high fidelity prototyping tool. That would really help us a lot. And yeah, Rebecca is gonna share the link of the survey. if you want to take it. Yeah, if you haven't yet, check out our social media channels and user community for our latest news, inspiration, and cool conversations with fellow pie makers. So yeah, that's all for today. Thank you everyone for joining. We really hope to see you again at our next live event. Goodbye, and thank you again, Jeffrey. Amazing presentation, as
Thanks.
always.
Happy to be here.